Brian, you said rendering SVG with React was bad or expensive. Why?
Oh, we just had a series of misfortunes. The chief among them was that SNU icon that I was talking about. Like that one was an SVG that we were doing. It's just SVGs are kind of complicated, right? Like they can have a lot of paths and a lot of points and a lot of arcs and things like that. And that's just a lot of componentry for React to deal with if it doesn't really have to. Most SVGs are going to be static, right? That you can just download them as an object, throw them on a page, and call it good. And React doesn't really have to care. It can just treat it like an image. So throwing all that componentry into React is expensive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey guys, I have one question each, if that's okay. First one for Brian. You talked about should component update. What's your take on immutable data, and if that is a good solution for the optimization of React?
Immutable data is the best, and you just totally sidestep the problem, right? Because you can just check a reference. Is this the same thing that I had before? No. Okay, re-render. No. Or like, yeah. Anyway, so immutable JS is, or it doesn't necessarily have to be immutable JS. Like that one does work for super well. So yes, I think it's awesome if you can get your whole team to buy into the immutable functional lifestyle.
Great, thanks. Second one for Horia. It seems like you've spent quite a lot of time customizing CSS, and up to the point where it almost seems like it's just part of the JavaScript build. So wouldn't it at some point make sense to just get rid of the other language and just build everything in JavaScript? Have you thought about that?
Have I thought about that? No, I love CSS. If you follow the React Native talks at all, people have thought about that deeply. They've built solutions around that. I don't think it's a good idea. CSS has been optimized. Browsers know how to treat it a lot better than you setting inline styles all the time would. And it does empower you to do some cool things with ancestors and selectors and all that hierarchically. Like inline styles work well here, but you have no idea where here might be. I don't think it's a good idea to just scrape CSS off the web development stack now.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Regarding the background images, so if you do right click, I think you cannot copy it. And if you inspect element, you don't see it either. So it's like probably it has advantages, but it has also disadvantages.
Well, we're gifted with the gift of sight. So we need to see something that looks like an image. And when you want to interact with it in another way, other than sight, you still want an image element there, right? That's what you're saying? Because that's what we're doing. We're putting an invisible image element there so you can, save image as and all that. But you don't actually see it. You see something that we can control how it looks.
Okay.
Hey, my question's for Brian. So when loading async JavaScript, based on the graph that you had there earlier, like does the fact that it's loading asynchronously instead of deferred, could that still slow down overall page rendering just due to being like taxing on the browser for when the scripts do come back?
Oh man, you need to ask Alex that, because I'm not a browser engineer, so I mean I'm sure the answer in some capacity is yes, but I think your perf gains are going to be so much greater that it's going to be minuscule in the grand scheme of things. That's my feeling. But I have no data to back that up.
So would it be safer to go deferred if it's non-essential as opposed to async?
No, I think you're going to hit this. You're going to get the same performance hit in both, right? I mean, that's what would make sense to me because they both have to be downloading in the background. I'm going to assume that's a background thread, but again, that's a feeling. I don't actually know if that's the case how they're doing it.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, so I'm struggling to understand a little bit about how React internals work, specifically virtual DOM diffing, because I'm under the impression that that's part of what makes React performant. Is that correct or incorrect? And could you talk a little bit about it? You didn't mention it in your slides, so I know I'm introducing something that you may not be familiar with, but I'm just curious to know if you could talk about that.
I don't think I know more about virtual DOM diffing than most people.
Okay.
But that's not why we choose to use React. We choose to use React because it's easily approachable by new people. And once you learn it, you can apply the same thing to anything you're building. That's the main reason why we're still using React.
Yeah, I heard, I think someone on the React team say the virtual DOM makes React viable, not desirable, right? Like it makes it so you could use it, makes it performant enough that we can use it, not necessarily the reason that we're going to use it. But that being said, I mean, basically it's just building a tree, right, of your different components, and it said, okay, this subtree, did shit change? No. Okay, I'm not going to do anything with you. I'm just going to leave you just the way you are. Okay, this one did change. Okay, I'm going to find just the points that changed, and then I'm going to go update just those points in the DOM. So it's minimizing interaction with the DOM, because the DOM is ultimately the slow part of the interaction there, right? Like we can keep that all in memory in JavaScript, and that's plenty performant, right? Does that kind of make some sense?
Yes, I'm just curious to know if it's what makes React more performant, or what makes it faster
Than
than any of the other things that you mentioned. Does it?
What makes React performant, I guess, ultimately comes down to how the user's using it, right? And like, it's the same thing with Angular, same thing with Backbone, same with jQuery. Like, if you're writing crap code, it's crap code everywhere, and React's not going to save you. I'm sorry. Ultimately, like, you can write good code in any number of library and frameworks, and as long as you're writing good code, it's still going to. You can write performant prototype today, and that's still going to work just fine, right? So again, like we're coming back to the point, like it makes it viable, not necessarily desirable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one question. So right now, AngularJS 2.0 and ECMAScript 6 is coming up. Just curious about how React is going to map up with these two things.
I have no idea. I'm not an Angular guy.
No, because Angular is one predominant framework that is coming up pretty fast. And just my question, like how React is going to work with Angular, because most of the people are using Angular, and React.js is also there, which has its own benefits and advantages, right? So how are we going to be using it along with Angular, or as an alternative to Angular? So what is the right way of using it?
I am also not an Angular user, but I've heard people do weird things where they use both Angular and React on the same page and they work together. That's not too far-fetched. With ECMAScript 2015, that shouldn't really matter at all to the user, to how they use the application, or the framework.
So it's more of a question of like existing frameworks. Like, I mean, if we want to include React in a framework that already has Angular, is it a good idea to do that? Is it something that is preferable, or we leave React alone and leave Angular alone? That's kind of the same question again and again, but just one of the things that I thought I'll bring it up.
I'm a big proponent of kind of the draw within the lines philosophy. If you're writing Angular, it seems to make sense to me to stick to Angular. The question you need to ultimately ask yourself is, why am I including React? Am I including React because it's cool? Well, I mean, it is cool. Look at me, right? But that's not like a super good reason, right? I don't think you're going to get really any performance gain. I mean, going back to the lines of like, writing good code in any framework is going to yield good results. Like Angular is a fine framework. It works really well. I used to write some of it a couple years ago. It's not that many years ago. We're not that old. Well, I'm not. Angular is certainly not that old. Anyway, so I'm a big proponent of just, draw within lines. If you're writing Angular, then just stick to Angular and learn it the best you can.
All right, thank you so much.
Hey guys, thank you for the talk. I've got a question for Horia. So the CX function you were showing in your presentation, is that available anywhere as a package or an add-on to React?
Not that I know, but some other people have pointed me to similar things. If we talk later, I can point you to that.
Sounds good, thank you.